Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Twameva Mata Cha Pita Twameva Twameva Bandhuscha Sakha Twameva Twameva Vedyadavinam Twameva Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So what shloka are we on for this evening?
We're in section 35, shloka number 136.
So what we have had is some of the meditation verses that are assertive. We talked a bit last week about some meditation verses are the self is not this, etc. But then we have some that point to the nature of the self. They do not define, they only indicate. And how do we use them? In your meditation, tune up the mind, get your mind quiet, have the book near you. And just take one of the verses with these ideas that point to the nature of the self. With your mind quiet, attentive faculty turned within. See whether or not it's true about you. All right, Ganesh, will you help us out, please?
Advice for self-control. Niyamitam samam tvam swamatmanamatman ayam aham iti sakshat vidhi buddhi prasadat jani marana taranga para sansara sindhum pratara bhava kritartho brahma rupena samstha. With a regulated mind and a purified intellect, realize your own self while in this body. Identify yourself with it and cross the shoreless ocean of samsara, whose waves are births and deaths. Become blessed by getting firmly established in Brahman, which is your own essence.
So here he starts this section by an injunction. Do this. This is what our life is about. So let's take each one of these ideas. So I think the first one was with a regulated mind and a pure intellect. Is that what he said?
Yeah.
So here we're talking about essentially tuning up the mind. Regulated mind, keeping it still and calm, intensely introverted. And by pure, we don't mean good thoughts as opposed to bad thoughts. We mean fewer thoughts. So there's some space. Next idea.
Realize your own self while in the body.
Not after I die. Not next lifetime. But in this very body. Koham. Who am I? In that space between my thoughts. The mind tuned up. Notice the knower. Look behind your eyes. Who are you? That vast empty space of consciousness. Shoreless ocean of infinitude, of beatitude. Next idea.
Identify yourself with it and cross the shoreless ocean of samsara.
Yes. So it's not just having it once, maybe when I'm here with the Guru, or when I've read a text, or only in my meditation. Means I need to identify myself with it. This is called jnana abhyasa. Abhyasa means practice. It's the practice of knowledge. So some of the tricks that help. If I think I'm a person, I'm deluded. If I think I'm an individual, I'm deluded. Stop! Turn the mind within and notice the knower. Your mind in the state of ignorance will endeavor to resolve the struggle of ego. I need this. I don't want to have that. If only this will change, yada, yada, yada. I want to change the world. I want to change me or change everybody around me. Stop. Koham. Who am I? Remember who you are. Drop the struggle. And then one of my students came up with a good one that I love. Ask yourself, who cares? It's never the self. Who's all worked up? It's never the self. We have to do this over and over and over again. Now, way back at the beginning of the book, in the preparatory verses, before we get to the qualifications of a fit student, Shankara says, that person who's medha. Medha means having a keen memory. It can mean exoterically you've memorized some shlokas, some mantras from Upanishads. It's helpful. But the deeper, the esoteric meaning is this: the ability to apply the teaching at the appropriate life moment. Now, for most of us, this stuff arises largely in relationships. It can be my husband or my wife or my boss or a family member. And then we get what we call it a trigger. Medha, can you remember at that point? Jnana Havyasa. Wait a minute. If I think I'm a person, I'm deluded. Stop. Who am I? Who is it that cares? Drop it. Now, at this point, some gurus will poke at us. You can see if we have a button, an issue. Those keep until we drop it. Personally, I think life does a damn good job of that myself, without my help. But you and I need to pay attention. This is where that axiom, it's a spiritual axiom that if I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the klesha, the affliction. And it's always attachment, expectation, identification. Always. It's never, ever, ever out there. And can we remember to practice? And if we miss the opportunity, don't worry. The Lord will bring it by again. Next idea.
Whose waves are births and deaths.
Yes. So this ocean of change, always going up and down. Oh, it's okay today. No, I'm terrible. No, I did really good today. Ah, up and down. Caught in the feeling that I change. Only mine changes. I'm ever apart from it. Sakshi, the witness of it. We may have talked about this at a prior lesson. At one point, we're given the practice, Sakshi Bhava, take on the attitude, the feeling of the witness. Actually, you can't become the witness. You already are the witness. Soon you will see, no, I haven't become the witness. I just start to notice that I'm always the witness. Two witnesses. All right, next verse.
There's there's a one final sentence. Become blessed by getting firmly established in Brahman, which is your own essence.
Yes. So what does becoming firmly established in Brahman mean? First and foremost, stita prajna, steady wisdom. In the beginning, many of us have what I call the yo-yo state. Sometimes I know, sometimes I forget. Sometimes I know, sometimes I forget. So we want to continue to root out those moments of forgetting, those moments of falling spiritually asleep until we have sthita. Practically speaking, it means tuning up the mind, remembering to stay there, no matter. And then the other dimension of being established in Brahman, back again in the beginning, in the qualifications of a fit teacher. Swami Shankara will say, who's a full knower of the Supreme, who has retired into the Supreme. Drown the mind in Brahman, soak the mind in the sound. Next verse.
What is bondage? The reply. Atranatmanya hamiti matir baddha eshosya pusaha prapto jnana janana marana klesha sampata hetuhu yenaivayam papuridam asat satyam ityatma buddhyaya पुष्यत युक्षत यवति विषयैस्तन्तुभुहि पुष्यत युक्षत यवति विषयैस्तन्तुभिः कोशकृधात्. It is ignorance. Man identifies the self with not self. This is the bondage of man and brings in its wake the miseries of birth and death. Through this, he considers his perishable body as real. He identifies himself with it and nourishes, bathes, and preserves it with the help of sense objects. Thereby, he becomes bound like the silkworm in its cocoon woven by its own threads.
This is one of his classic images. So, the root of my problem, due to the non-apprehension of my self-nature. Where does that non-apprehension take place? In my mind. That's called a Varana Shakti, veiling power. What do I do next? I attribute to myself the qualities of the not self. And the root of it all is I think I'm my body. And then I'm obsessed with the care and the preservation and the sensuous satisfactions of the body, thinking that's myself. And what this does is create vasana. Let's review this. What is a vasana? A vasana simply means an impression, something that remains. Vasvasati is to dwell overnight, to linger, like a perfume does in a room. It is a subset of sanskara. Sanskara also means impression. Sanskaras in and of themselves are not particularly problematic. For example, do you see that's a lamp? You know it's not a table, you know it's not a chair, you know it's not a car, you know it's a lamp. Knowing it's a lamp is not particularly problematic. But a newborn doesn't know it's a lamp. The newborn's there in its crib, and nowadays they put these mobiles up in front of their vision. What is that for? So their eyes will learn to focus. Why? Who told you your eyes are supposed to focus? These are sanskaras. They're not problematic in general, except when we start associating I-ness and minus, pleasure and suffering, with various experiences. Then that leaves an impression in the unconscious, and a vasana has as its inherent power veiling power. Now, if you indiscriminately revel with an object of the senses, do a little tapas, burn it up. That's like one thread of the silkworm that wanted to break the thread. But you and I don't do that. One thread, one vasana, another, 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 and there are millions of them. So the mind becomes cocooned, just like the silkworm in its cocoon. So even though Satchidananda Rupaham, my form is existence, consciousness, and lives. In my mind, I'm cocooned from that knowledge. Instead, I'm Jim. I'm a fat old man. Everything hurts. Nobody loves me. I live alone. I'm gonna die. All those thoughts of I-ness and minus. The easiest way to understand this process is again to go to the dream state. So, when you are awake, you have knowledge of yourself as the waker. Then at night, you climb into bed, and the first thing that happens after a while is Avarana Shakti, veiling power. We call it deep sleep. In the state of deep sleep, you have the non-apprehension of yourself as the waker. Then the mind projects, Vikshepa Shakti. What does it project? A dream body, which is a locus of perception. In that dream body, I peep out at the dream world. And a dream ego, I think it's me. And the mind has also created a phenomenal world of names and forms separate from me, and an interior world of thoughts and feelings. I have that triplety, that triple factor of knower, knowing, and known in the dream state. And to the dreamer, it seems real. It's only upon awakening that I see it was all an illusion. The dream body, the dream ego, the dream world, the dream reactions to it, were all imagination. Now there's stages of ignorance. I'm thinking about one of my students, we're going back a decade, and gay man met this boy. Oh, maybe this is the one. He didn't have a lot of money, didn't matter. Calls up to a resort in Guerneville, somewhere up there. It might have been, anyway, by the Russian River. So romantic. Weekend with this boy. Spends a lot of money he didn't have. So he goes up there, and it was just terrible. The sex was lousy, the communication was lousy, they were both horribly uncomfortable with one another. And he was so disappointed. Came back and got drunk. What happened? He, in his mind, created this romantic expectation. And for him, it became so real. And when the relative reality of this world actually took place, totally destroyed him. But we do that all the time. If I'm angry, it's because I have an unmet expectation, a thwarted desire. That's what anger is. I have romanticized an outcome. I'm not at all present to what is. Superimposition. Stuff the mind makes up. That's what tortures me. And in the end, the biggest illusion is I think I'm a person. I think I'm the body, or the body plus the personality. All of that comes about in the same way as the dream. It's no different. So you want to, in a sense, as we walk through this world, have a lucid dream. Some of you may have had the experience that when you're dreaming, you know you're dreaming. So the woman or man of knowledge walks through this world knowing it's like a dream. So what is bondage? There is no other bondage than the deeply rooted conviction in the mind that I'm bound, which has as its cause spiritual ignorance, the non-apprehension of my self-nature. Then the subsequent misapprehension. I think I'm the body. Now listen carefully. There is no other liberation than the deeply rooted conviction based on direct experience, not that I'm an enlightened person, not that I'm a realized soul, not that, oh, I, Jin, am a knower of Brahman. No, I am Brahman. I am not a knower of Brahman. That's still a person. And no personal sense of self is real. Now listen very carefully. Neither state touches the self. The self is not touched by ignorance. The self is not freed by self-realization. All of the problem is in the mind. And all of the freedom happens to the mind. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
अतस्मिस्तद्बुद्धि प्रभवति विमूढस्य तमसा विवेकाभावद्वै स्फुरति भुजगे रज्जुधिषणा ततोऽनर्थप्रातो निपतति समादातु रधिकः ततो यो सद्ग्राहसहि भवति बन्धशृणु सखे. When one is overcome by ignorance, one mistakes a thing for what it is not. In the absence of discrimination, the snake is mistaken for a rope, and great danger befalls him who seizes it through this false notion. So listen, my friend, it is mistaking the not self for the self, the unreal for the real, that creates bondage.
So Shankara here has turned our normal metaphor. Sarpa Raju, you see a rope and you mistake it for a snake. In this verse, he says, the snake is mistaken for a rope. So I'm walking through the jungle, and a cobra is stretched out, sunning itself. And I think it's a length of rope. Oh, I think I'll grab that and take it back to my village. Wang! Wang! So what is he talking about? You and I are restless, irritable, and discontent. Okay, this yoga stuff sounds reasonable. Oh, but I want some relief. So I will dance with the world. Cash and prizes, boys and toys. Gimme, 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 gimme. More, better, different. It won't hurt if I just go to a few orgies. We sit with our resentments. How could they have done that to me? Don't they know who I am? Spend all morning. One of my favorite definitions, you know how you know when you have a resentment? You're having conversations with people who aren't in the room. We do this stuff and we think it's harmless, not realizing that we are being bitten by the venom of the snake, of sangraha, of attachment. Of jiva bhavana, of identification. So what Shankara is saying here is stay empty. You want to have a mind like a sieve where water just passes through the sieve. Shankara will say, have a mind like a wicker basket. You pour the water in and the water just pours out. So whatever comes to us in the world, positive or negative, let it through. Now, let me give you a secret here. Many of us yogis are more than willing to try to renounce our attachment to our misery. I hurt so badly by what so-and-so said to me, and I can't let it go. Or I've lost so-and-so and such and such. I'm terrified I've got a pink slip at work. I can't seem to let go of the fear. What has happened? Listen very carefully. Where we get identified is on the pleasure side of the equation. Unfortunately, few of us see this. So when praise comes our way, oh, Jim, you're the most wonderful person in the world. I just couldn't get through life without you. What do we do? Oh, yes. I'm glad you finally noticed. You're so hot. Oh, my God. Let's do it. Yeah. Ah, finally, I've got some financial security. I've got a good job. I own my business. The stock market's going up. Yes. And I get attached and identified on the pleasure side. I promise you, because the world is inherently impermanent, everything in this world changes. If you have become attached, you will suffer. Doesn't mean not to enjoy, but let go. So what do? True story. I may have told this to some of you before. So we were up at Krishnalia at Piercy, and it was early evening, and Swamiji was sitting out on the lawn, and there was maybe 20 or 30 of us there, and having satsang, where he's answering questions and stuff like that. Now, he was a diabetic, so he really watched his diet, but he loved chocolate. So someone had bought one of these little Hershey, like you give to the kids on Halloween, little tiny ones. So he stops satsang, gets the Hershey, unwraps it. And then back to satsang. He was going to eat chocolate. He was going to do nothing but eat chocolate. But then it's gone. And he's back to satsang. No impression. So in the end, the world is not problematic. It's not about being afraid of the world. It's about knowledge. Not long before Swamiji died, he knew he was very ill. And he wanted to endow the Chinmaya mission so that it would financially survive his death. Because he was the major moneymaker for the whole mission all over the world, basically through eating. Bhiksha. You have a meal and you pay money, you donate money to serve Swamiji and me. Bhiksha. So what this was, they were going to have a ceremony. Everybody was going to raise money and they were going to convert it to gold bars. And in Mumbai, in this huge ballroom, on the stage, they set up this enormous scale. I can't remember what this ritual is called, but it was done for kings in ancient times.
Tulabaranam.
Say it again.
Tulabaranam. Tula means scale.
Yes. So on one side is Swamiji in this fancy chair. And then on the other side, so he's down on the stage, the other part of it's up in the air, and from different centers of the Chinmaya mission around the world. And the Bank of India provided gold bars for this. So they would say, we're donating so and so many rupees. And then they go up and put the gold bars on the scale. And then, and other people did this, and other people did this. And finally, at one point, it goes, big cheer happens. Swamiji gets down off the chair and he looks at the gold and he turns to the audience. He was such a mind. He goes, and walks off. Enjoyed, but detached. Wonderful pictorial lesson. So that's how the yogi wants to move through life. Don't be afraid of the world, but don't be attached. And always understand, usually attachment happens on the pleasure side of the equation. Now, some of us can be attached to our misery, or more accurately, we're identified with our misery. We may have friends and they have gone through a tragedy, sometimes in childhood, but then that becomes their identity. I am a victim of childhood sex abuse. I am a victim of trauma. I am a survivor of this. I had an alcoholic parent. And then they get stuck on that identity, and that's how they present themselves to the world. Or I had abusive parents and things like that. And then they rehash those memories and rehash those memories. There's kind of a sick pleasure in it. The klesha, the defect, is called self-pity. It's so unsexy. Oh, yeah, I got anger issues. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm dealing with lust. I got a sex addiction. Who wants to go to their friends and say, oh, I have self-pity? That's what my klesha is. It's so smarmy. But many of us have it. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. And we can get identified with that. Well, yeah. Now, this is not to say there may not be value in doing PTSD therapy or ACA therapy. That's adult children of alcoholics. Or dealing with childhood sex abuse, when those of us who have been through those experiences, I am not denigrating them. When you're a child, you are definitely a victim. But if we're hanging on to it at 30, 40, 50, 60 years of age, guess where the problem is? We've got to find a way to let go of our attachment and identification. Have to get to forgiveness and let it go. I am not my trauma. Any thoughts on this? All right. So that's a wonderful, wonderful little twist that Shankara has done. Not to mistake a snake for a rope. Not letting ourselves indiscriminately revel with the objects of the senses. And what happens is, after the fact, I engage in chintya. Chintya in Hindi means worry. In Sanskrit, it means very specifically an after the fact rumination in my mind over an event. Can be positive or negative. Oh, that was so good. Oh, that was so horrible. That's what creates lavasana. So if you watch children, child can go, and mommy or daddy takes out their car keys and goes jangle, jangle, jangle. Gone. Gone. Or if you ever tried to pick up after a 2-year-old, you've got children or nephews or nieces or grandkids, toys all over everything. Why? Child plays with the toys and then they get distracted and they just leave it. No impression. That's why we can't remember our early childhood, by the way. It's very little impression. All right, next verse.
अखण्ड नित्याद्वयबोधशक्त्या स्फुरन्तमात्मानमनन्तवैभवम् समावृणोत्या प्रतिशक्तिरेषा तमोमयिराहुरिवार्कबिम्बम्. Avritti, the veiling power, is of the nature of tamas, ignorance. It covers the self whose glories are infinite, which is indivisible, eternal, and one without a second, just as Rahu covers the sun during a solar eclipse.
So, the truth is, tamas never really covers the self. The covering takes place in the mind. It's a non-apprehension. Let me prove this to you. So I go out on the street and there's some guy high on drugs or something like that. And I were to say, do you exist? Of course I exist. What's your existence like? Miserable. Me money. Do you know you're miserable? Of course I know I'm miserable. I am, I know. He does not doubt that he is. He does not doubt that he knows. But the vritti, the veiling power, is in the mind. So in my mind, I do not know that I am Brahman. And then I superimpose the notion I'm the body. And the metaphor that Shankara gives us is Rahu. Now, Rahu and Ketu, someone who's more familiar with Indian astrology, help us out here. They're the lunar nodes, is that right?
Yeah.
But in the mythology, where you see Rahu doing his thing is during a solar eclipse. So when the moon passes in front of the sun, between the sun and the earth, it seems like something's taking bites out of the sun. Or with a lunar eclipse, when the moon's shadow is doing the same thing. So in the mythology, Rahu is a demon with an enormous mouth and head, but he doesn't have a body. So when he eats the sun, whew, comes out behind. Now, if we were in the spaceship and we were out in space and we could see the shadow of the moon occluding the sun, we look through our tinted spaceship windshield, has anything really happened to the sun? It's an illusion. There's no demon who eats the sun. Likewise, I am never in danger. I am never diminished. I do not need to be defended, protected, or secured. But when the avritti, the ignorance, covers the mind, to my mind, it seems like I take on the qualities of the equipment. I'm a failure. I'm a success. I'm a loving person. Oh, I'm so hard-hearted and terrible. I'm doing really well in life. I'm a thief and a liar. I'm successful at work. Don't you know who I am? I'm famous. I'm a loser. I lost all my business during COVID. So I attribute to the self the transient qualities of the not-self. And just like there's no demon who swallows the sun, all of the apparent vicissitudes of the evil never touch me. True story. So I was listening to a fellow share a few weeks ago, and he's a crystal meth addict, and he's a nurse. Thank God, so far, knock on wood, they haven't drug tested him at work. He always manages to take off from work when he's using. So he's still never been busted or lost his license. But one of the things crystal meth does, it makes you paranoid. And he was just sobbing in tears at this meeting. I don't want to use. I don't want to use. If I use again, it will kill me. But I'm in so much fear. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my home. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my partner. What seems reasonable is I should kill myself. That's cray cray. But it's not uncommon in this world. It's not uncommon that our minds can be so twisted by fear, by depression, by alienation. We think non-existence is the solution. Well, I've got news for you. In the 12-step traditions, we have a phenomenon called the geographic. I'm an alcoholic and an addict in Chicago, and now I've done totally trashed my life. It's Chicago. I'll move to Los Angeles. That'll make it better. After a while in Los Angeles, everybody hates me, and I've lost all my jobs. My credit cards don't work. I'm going to go to San Francisco. That's where I can be really free. Wherever you go, there your mind is. Suicide is a spiritual geographic. I think it's going to ease my pain. We don't realize it's not the body that's in pain. And offing the body. Yes, a grosser part of the mind does go with it. But it doesn't solve the problem. They're on the other side with the same damn mind. So what we need to do is right here in this very body, solve the problem. What's my problem? Adhyasa, superimposition. First is Avarana Shakti, veiling power, the non-apprehension of myself as Brahman. Where? In the mind. Then Vikshepa Shakti, projecting power. I think I'm a person, and that always has the feeling of being incomplete. And then I'm presented with two possibilities. Play whack-a-mole with the world, that's going to fix it. Or I need to fix me. My identity needs to be fixed. Lose 10 pounds, gain 10 pounds, color my hair, get a different house, get a different partner, get a different job, drive a different car. And the third element that's always there is kartavya, struggle. I must go from point A to point B in order to be happy. Now, here's an interesting point. I was talking with a friend last night, and we have a mutual friend. And he's got a good job, finally bought his own house, he's got a boyfriend. And as long as he didn't have all these things, he could labor under the romantic notion, that's what's going to finally make me happy. Well, he's a very successful young man. Guess what? It didn't work. It didn't work. Oh, I'm so lonely. Only I could get married. It would be so different. Another student, when asked, is it better being married? He says, no, it's just different. Kids, oh, if we only had a baby. I see all my friends and the baby. Unless you have an autistic child or one with cerebral palsy. Or as my brother used to say, he was afraid when his girls grew up that they'd meet someone who was like him when he was their age. And they're so expensive. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good, some of it's good, some of it's not so good. I call it the sine wave of life. But so many of us have an illusion. What's wrong is I haven't got the right stuff. And the cause of that illusory notion is spiritual ignorance. I do not know who I am. I do not see what this world is. All right, next verse.
Tiro bhute swatmanya malatarate jovati puman na atmanam mohadahamiti shariram kalayati tatak kama krodha prabhriti bhiramum bandhana gunaihi param vikshepakya rajasa purushaktir vyathayati. When a man's own self of purest splendor is hidden from his direct experience, that man, due to ignorance, comes to falsely identify himself with his body, which is the not self. Then the merciless persecution of Rajas, the projecting power, binds him down with fetters of lust, anger, etc.
Yes. So the power of tamas, veiling power, the non-apprehension of myself, nature, then the projecting power of rajas, when I think I'm the body or the body plus the personality. And then I'm bound by the fetters of anger, of greed. I call it that we get caught up in the spiritual KKK. It's not the Ku Klux Klan. It's kama, karma, krodha. First, kama, craving. My deeply rooted belief is I need that. What does that do? It impels me into action. Ego prompted action, karma, which always results in at best temporary satisfaction. 5 cents worth of pleasure for 95 cents worth of work. What's the end result? Krodha, anger. Whole business just pisses me off. When what's the truth? The truth is Chidananda Rupaham. My nature is bliss consciousness. Let go of our attachment to the world. Let the mind come home. Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. Shankara chants. My nature is bliss consciousness. I am Shiva. Auspicious. Next one.
महामोहग्राह ग्रसनगलितात्म महामोहग्राहग्रसनगलितात्मावगमनो धियो नानावस्थां स्वयमभिनयं तद्गुणतया अपारे संसारे विषपूरे जलनिधौ निमज्योन्मधयां भ्रमति कुमति कुत्सितगतिः. An individual who has a perverted intellect, whose knowledge of his self has been swallowed by the shark of complete ignorance, behaves as though the different states of his intellect were the natures of the self, and drifts up and down, now rising and now sinking on the ocean of change, which is full of the poison of sense pleasures. Indeed, what a calamitous fate.
So, with the non-apprehension in my mind of my essential nature and the subsequent misapprehension, I think I'm the puny individuality. I'm caught by the shark, the graha, maybe it's a crocodile, of sense desire. Do me, do me, do me. The more I play with the world, the more I want. And the negative side can be for some of us who may not have that many attachments, But boy, do we sure have aversions. Everything annoys me. And I think it's out there. The world just isn't behaving. It's annoying me. The world is neutral. So I go up and down, swallowed up by the shark of intemperance. All based in these two powers, Avarana Shakti, veiling power, the non-apprehension of who I am, and then the subsequent Vikshepa Shakti, projecting power. Three elements. I'm a person, I have a goal, and I have obligatory action. And I'm convinced I'll be happy when. It'll be better if. More, better, different is the solution. And it's a lie. And don't believe me, don't believe Shankara. Just look to your direct experience. All right, one more.
Bhanuprabha Sanjanita Sanjanita Panktihi Bhanum Tirodhaya Vijrambhate Yatha Atmodi Atmoditaham Kritiratmatattvam Tatha Tirodhaya Vijrambhate Swayam. As the formation of clouds generated by the sun's rays come to veil the very same sun and appear clearly manifest in the sky, so too the ego arisen from the self covers the reality of the self and expresses itself in full manifestation.
So I like to modify his metaphor and talk about living in the city when it's overcast. So in the daytime, I can go out. Oh, it's overcast. Can you see the sun? No, can't see the sun today. And it's very cold. But if I go out at night where there's light pollution, you normally can't see the stars anyway. You can't oftentimes really tell if it's overcast, especially if it's a high overcast. In the daytime, you can. What is the cause of the clouds? Well, basically, over in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, the sun is heating up the water, ocean water, which causes it to evaporate, and it becomes the moisture in the atmosphere. It comes sailing east to Northern California. Likewise, when the mind is engaged in moha, illusion, delusion, bhranti, delusion, the ego arises, this phony self, this false self, this shadow self. I think I'm a person. And then I engage in all sorts of activity which creates mental agitation. And the more agitated my mind, I don't ever lose the sun. I never doubt that I exist. Usually, chit is not veiled too badly, but I certainly do forget I am such it. Instead, I think I am a lump of meat. And what does get veiled is the Ananda. It's not accessible to me because of the projecting, the agitation. It's there, always there, just like on a cloudy day. The sun is still there. So listen carefully. It's not so much that I need to find the self. What I need to do is remove that which occludes my direct experience, which is attachment and identification. It's paradoxical. We are going all the way back to the qualifications of a fit student. Viveka, that firm conviction in the intellect that Brahman alone is real and the phenomenal world is mithya, illusory, has nothing to it. But the self is real. The phenomenal world is trinkets and baubles. Then vairagya, that desire to give up my attachments to all experiences gained through the senses and all forms of self. No personal sense of self is real. What about love, Jim? Yourself. But you look at who's loving whom. Do you have to be a person in order to be in that loving relationship? Not saying leave your husband or wife. You think love is real. That's why Shankar will say we have to renounce caste, family, station in life, all our relations, all the objects, all. All right. What verse are we on for next week?
I lost the verse.
143.
Yeah, 140.
143 for next week. Okay, we'll end here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.